Fox College football analyst Joel Klatt joins us each week courtesy of MyBookie.ag. Code next round to get a 300% deposit bonus for use in their casino. You can bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.ag. Use code next round to get a 300% deposit bonus in the casino and 50 free spins. MyBookie.ag, code next round.
All right, we're about to talk to Joel Klatt. SEC road games so tough. So tough in the SEC.
Look at him already laughing at you.
But my God, that Big Ten weather. Klatt went to Big Ten weather on me. And he said Big Ten weather when it started to rain in Columbus, and I screamed at the TV. But SEC road games, Klatt.
Klatt with us courtesy of MyBookie.ag. Code next round for that 300% bonus in the casino. Your sign-on bonus, 300% of it in the casino. What is up, Klatt? How are you, my friend?
I'm good. All you SEC folks, you guys are comma apologists. Do you know what that means?
Comma apologists. Go ahead.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. You know, you think about an argument with your significant other, and you get to the point where you're like, I'm really sorry. And like most sane people just end with a period.
Right.
But you SEC fans end an apology with a comma. I'm really sorry that you feel that way. Okay, really hard in the SEC. You know, it's like, no, they're just hard everywhere, guys. Yeah. Like, this is what, and it drives me nuts. In the 4-letter, gosh, everybody on there is just like, just a propaganda spewer. Everything is about like, oh, you know, it's just tough to win and on the road in the SEC. It wasn't tough for Cal. It wasn't tough for Miami in the swamp. But now all of a sudden it's supposed to be just brutally tough for Ole Miss. It's like, you know, Ole Miss has losses to 7-loss Kentucky, 4-loss LSU, 5-loss Florida. Like, beat it. Like, I'm sorry. It's over.
He's not an elite coach, but that's another story. I've said that forever. But I do have a serious question
now
for
tell
you,
me how tough it is playing in 55-degree chilling rain.
Well, I mean, it was more like 45. Trust me, I was freezing. And like, if Kirby wants to sit there and whine and cry about like how tough it is to play at Ole Miss against that defense, I want them to come down here and see how tough it's like. Well, it's not tougher than playing at Ohio State, is it? With the number 1 defense, total and scoring, is it? Like, please tell me you guys see the ridiculous nature of the entire narrative. Please tell me you see this.
It has been a strange year, and I don't even think that sums it up. But I do want to ask you this because we got a million things we want to get into with you. But Jalen Milroe against Georgia, against LSU, Klatt, he looked unstoppable. And, you know, guys like Rex Ryan and Mel Kiper were saying this is the number 1 overall guy. This is your Heisman Trophy winner. And then the way he played against Tennessee, I didn't think it could get worse. It did Saturday night against Oklahoma. I'm sure you saw he throws the pick 6, doesn't even make an effort to tackle the guy, which is just baffling to me. But I tried to ask these guys, have we ever seen somebody play like the best quarterback in college football and then play like one of the worst that would be benched? I can't recall it.
That's a great. I haven't heard it posed like that. Like, have we ever seen this type of peaks and valleys, right? Because, yeah, you're right. Like, at his best, Jalen Milroe is the most dangerous quarterback in the country, you know? But then at his worst, he's the most dangerous quarterback in the country, you know? And it's just about which team that danger is happening for. Yeah, that was I was not expecting that out of Alabama, and certainly out of Jalen Milroe. It's problematic, you know. It's very problematic. There's some sort of disconnect there with the way that they play in some games versus others, and you know there is a bit of this that can be attributed to a bunch of teams, right? Not just Alabama, and I'm sure you guys and in particular the folks listening to this show want to talk more about Bama, but 7 top 20 teams lost. A bunch of teams that controlled their own destiny, as Bama did, lost. And there's something to the fact that, you know, there's a lot of truths that play. One is these are kids, you know, and so you're going to get inconsistency, as anybody that has kids knows. And 2 is when you play the game around you versus the game in front of you, you're typically going to get beat. Dion talked about this after that Colorado loss to Kansas. there's so much narrative being thrown on every team at the end of the season. Well, they control their own destiny, so they're for sure going to do this in the future. And I can tell you this, guys, when you're not focused on the details in front of you, you get beat. And the teams that don't have a future, like Florida, Oklahoma, Kansas, what are they focused on? The details in front of them. And success in this sport is about attending to the details in front of you. It doesn't matter the way that you played against LSU when you dropped back to pass on the road against Oklahoma. None of the past success carries you into future success. The only thing that controls the way that outcomes evolve and are produced in your current game is how you are playing in that moment. That's the best part about football, and you can tell that there are a lot of teams out there, and maybe players more specifically, that were focused on other things outside of the game in front of them. This was Nick Saban's superpower. And I'm sure we'll get to this, but this is what I'm sure is so alarming for you guys and for the people listening to your program. You guys are great football fans down there, great football fans. And you have seen something that is unusual because it defies what I would consider to be the human characteristic. Our human instinct is to look ahead, to get fat and happy, to listen to positive things and think that about ourselves. Nick Saban didn't allow that to happen for 15 years. That was unusual and uncommon. And now that that's kind of the expectation, it's this rude awakening to how unique it was for a guy to be that rigid as far as the process and the details. And, I think back to a couple of weeks ago on game day when he gave that nothing speech. Remember that? I would give him the nothing speech. What does, your recruitment rankings give you today? Nothing. And he would have them repeat the nothing speech, and that's clearly what a bunch of teams need today.
And it wasn't just the loss. It's the fact that I think all of us would sit here and say, we've watched Alabama football a long time, Klatt. I got to go a long way back to find a performance that bad. It's not that you lost. That performance is unacceptable in Alabama football, period. Totally. I mean, it's just that's what blows me away the most.
This is not against oh man, OU is so good.
No, they're 5-5.
They were 1-5 against their last 6 FBS opponents.
I know.
That's what's alarming to me is, yes, the game was bad, but it's not like you can say, oh man, that was Georgia in Athens or you know what I mean? Some team that we can be well, that's a national championship team, or even if it was Texas in Austin or Ohio State in a non-league game, or some team that is well, they're going to go win. This was Oklahoma, who was 1-5 in their last 6 against the FBS.
Yeah,
that's staggering.
Klatt, one of my best friends, 375 pounds, but he told me yesterday, he said, look, I think I could have made the tackle, or at least I would have made the effort that Milroe didn't.
You would have got to him. I know this guy.
Yeah, he said he would have at least gotten to him. But, I mean, what does that say to your teammates? Obviously, the fan base is pissed off about it, but I didn't get that because the game was still in play. You can't really give up a touchdown. You got to at least try to limit them to a field goal. I mean, I know you've probably seen lack of effort like that before, but what do you take from that?
Man, nothing good. That's the problem. I knew that you were going to ask about this, and there's no easy way to answer it other than that is a massive lack of judgment, which is unfortunate because I've been a huge fan of Jalen, and I'm sure you guys have as well. And he stuck it out. He didn't transfer. There's so many things that you love about this kid and what he means and what he's done. And in one instant, so much of that positivity is kind of thrown away. And this is going to be, in some ways, I don't want to say the lasting legacy, because I think that that's unfair, but it's certainly going to be something that people remember. And that's unfortunate because his career deserves better than that. And unfortunately, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that overwhelming frustration in a moment, ultimately resulted in a lack of judgment, because I have no idea why I was the idiot when I was like the clown with the sand in the bottom. I chased a Miami guy down. I had no business trying to I had turf toe. I'm running. I'm 5 yards behind him, and I look over, and John Beeson suplexes me, gets a Nevin Shapiro bounty. It's on YouTube, by the way. You can YouTube it. You can show all I think it's like Klatt gets blown up or something. There's a turnover. I'm chasing him down. No business. I'm not trying. I shouldn't have even brought that up, but I'm just saying, like, at some point, your instinct as a competitor should kick in.
Joel Klatt is with us here as we continue our conversation on college football. I'll go back to the early window. Your game's on at the same time, so I don't know how much you went back and watched Ole Miss in Florida, but it's on my second TV. And there are times in that game
better
where
be on your second TV.
Yeah, it was. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, why do you continue to go for 4th and 1 and not take field goals? And that's something Lane's always done. And this is universal in college football. When did we start devaluing early in games, taking 3 points and going for it on 4th and short? When did that become the thing to do you think? Is it all analytics?
Yes. Everybody has gone full into analytics, and analytics at their core is hyper aggressive. The entire basis of analytics is how to win the game, get the last possession, like all these things that are in the most aggressive category possible. And so, for instance, there's some companies that I talk to that do these analytics things, and they send me these videos, and they bring up game situations, and they just say, like, oh, this is a definite go, this is a definite not go, this is in the middle. And the thing that I'm less aggressive than the analytics. I'm just going to tell you that, right? Like, and they can point to the math all they want, but there are moments in individual games that are different than the aggregate. You see, analytics both in baseball and football are a function of the aggregate. We have a season's worth of data, and the season's worth of data suggests this in this moment. Well, that doesn't take each moment for its own decision. What exactly is going on in this game? How is my defense playing? How is their offense playing? How is my special teams playing? What's going on? Do I feel like this is going to be a lower scoring game or higher scoring game? I can't just view this through some sort of aggregate of data in a tunnel. And I'm with you. I think like taking points is a serious business. Here's where I think analytics has really helped teams is when they get to the minus 45 to the plus 35. That area outside of field goal range where teams are now much more aggressive, I totally agree with, because you're trying to create points. Once you have points in your back pocket, or at least the assumption of points, and you're in field goal range, I think that you should ratchet down the aggressiveness because points puts pressure on the opponent, and that's just left. And I think what's frustrating to me is that coaches. And I'm not saying Lane does this specifically, but in general, coaches kind of shrug their shoulders and say, like, well, that's what the analytics say. It's like, okay, but what do you say?
That's right.
You know, like, what did the situation for you say? And I get in arguments like this with head coaches all the time, and more specifically, the analytics crowd. They'll call me and be like, hey, you said something in that game and it was wrong. And I was like, you think it's wrong? I don't. So, you know, it's still a decision. Well, the math says, and I'm like, okay, but the game said something different. The math in the game can say something different, I think.
I agree.
To prove that I had Klatt on my main TV,
I did too, Klatt.
Yeah, I started there. Now I got to be honest with you. It got out of hand. I had to go over.
You guys are the best.
I had to go over to Florida Ole Miss.
I left at the end of 3.
Yeah, Florida Ole Miss finished the early window, but I had you on early. I don't know if y'all were there early enough before they even went to Klatt and Gus. They had Gene Hackman doing the locker room speech with Dream On from Aerosmith over it. Freaking amazing, Klatt. Tell whoever at Fox put that together. They did I know it wasn't you. They did a tremendous job. I know you're not sitting there editing.
It was definitely not me.
Guys, I got the open this week.
That bump was incredible.
Hey, how great was that, though?
Was.
It gave me chills. I went back and watched it, too. I rewound it. I was like, I got to see that again.
Yeah, that was great. That was great.
They say in tournament basketball, you never talk about your next opponent. That's the way it started. So good.
And man, they go right down and go up 7-0.
That was such an impressive drive to start the game.
It was,
Yeah.
and it blew me away because I said, Klatt, all week, I thought Indiana would keep it close because I thought they would keep it close in the trenches. I was completely wrong. I thought more so Indiana being able to get after Will Howard because I think that is an underrated defensive front from Indiana. On the flip side, they could do nothing with their offensive tackles with those edges. I do want to bring this up before I forget on that game, though, because I said it earlier. Brown kind of disagreed with me. Travion Henderson goes down at the 1-yard line. Cignetti's not calling timeouts. We know why. He doesn't want them to score. But if your player goes down when he could have scored a touchdown, why do you show him up and score there at the end?
Show Travion up?
Yeah, I mean, I think if your own players
Cignetti.
I'm talking about I think Ryan Day showed up his own player. Travion could have had an easy touchdown. He goes down on the 1. They're not taking timeouts, and you are trying to punch it in at that point.
I think that, well, I think that the way Curt Cignetti has talked since he got the job was resonating. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you know, the basketball game.
That's right.
Hey, Michigan sucks and Ohio State sucks too. And the aura of confidence. Now, I'm not saying that he shouldn't do that because in a lot of ways, and I've talked with him about this, he said, listen, I had to go way over the line in order to get people at Indiana to kind of wake up from this malaise of mediocrity and to try to like figure things out. Now, when you're doing that, you're gonna shake the tree a little bit, and you can't get upset if one of those branches that's falling when you're shaking the tree hits you in the head. And I think that's what happened. I think that there was a side of Ohio State that was like, hey man, this guy's going to run his mouth for the better part of 6 months. Then like, fine, here we go. Here this is. Now, the Travion angle is different. I actually thought Travion did the wrong thing. He should have scored. It extends it to 3 possessions. So just like the actual game situation suggests a score, but once Cignetti was not taking a timeout, that was very much a message to a guy that had been very confident and boisterous over the last few months about his program and other programs in the conference.
Difficult loss, Klatt, for your Buffaloes at Kansas, but that Big 12 is such a mess right now. 9 teams could still win the conference.
Yeah, that's wild.
I guess you got to favor Arizona State. I mean, that would be, or at least to get to the championship game. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. They control their own destiny, and Iowa State controls
That's
their own
right,
destiny.
yeah.
So if those
yeah.
two teams win, they're in. There is a 4-team tie at the top, which also includes BYU and Colorado. Colorado is in the more precarious spot than any of those teams tied. They need to win, and then 2 of the 3 above them to lose. That's the easiest way to think about it. Any combination of 2 of those 3 lose above them. If they all lose, then it's an absolute. I think we should probably just like old school, just like roll a ball out there, and everyone starts from outside the lines, and it's like whoever gets the ball goes. It's just like we should do something fun along those lines. I have no idea what happens if we start getting into the 6, 7, 8-way ties in the Big 12, but that is a flat conference. There's very few peaks in that conference, and to be honest, outside of maybe Oklahoma State and Utah, just because of the injury factor for Utah, there's very few valleys. So anybody in that conference can beat anybody. And to be honest, guys, as we're getting to the end of the SEC year, that's kind of the SEC as well. There's a couple of peaks, and then I think we're seeing a conference that is fairly flat, which is dangerous. That's a dangerous proposition when you're trying to navigate your way towards seeding and towards getting yourself into a potential championship game.
I never thought Indiana was going to win the game again. I thought they would keep it closer. It really got off the rails with the dropped snap on the punt. I thought that was.
I mean, it's a 7-7 game at the
end. Almost a half, too.
I thought that's what really got the ball rolling in the wrong direction. I don't know if they were going to have success against that Ohio State defense, which is very, very good. With all that said, I continue to see on social media as the game played out, this team sucks. They don't deserve to be in. They haven't played anyone. You've seen them multiple times. I think they should be in. Is this one of the 12 best teams in college football?
Think of it this way. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but they gave up 14 points essentially on their punt team, which means that the score that they had in the fourth quarter, as much as they did not move the football, that would have brought them within a possession if their punt team was just competent at that point. They held Ohio State to 316 yards. That's a season low. I get it. Their offense wasn't great, but Ohio State, as I said earlier, they have the number one defense, both scoring and total, in the country. So I don't think that they played as poorly as people think. Did Ohio State get after them? Yes. And was it a little too big for Indiana? Yes. I'll just say that, guess what? Top 5 matchups for your first time doing it in that season on the road, no one plays well. Oregon and Ohio State. Ohio State didn't play well. Georgia and Alabama. Georgia didn't play well, certainly in that first half. So it's like, and now we just want to jump on Indiana and say, like, we'll see. Well, no. Hold on, time out. And if the argument is just about the schedule with Indiana, then let's make it about the schedule. You guys ready for this?
Yep.
Now, look in the top 10 and look at the strength of schedules in the top 10. Indiana's is now 52nd, not 106th. 52nd. Miami's 59th. SMU, 77th. Notre Dame, 78th. Now you start to, let's rate the losses of all those one-loss teams. Indiana at Ohio State. Miami, Georgia Tech. Not even close. SMU, BYU. Notre Dame, Northern Illinois. And then you look at, like, what has Indiana been against their schedule when they've won? Well, much more dominant than any of those other 3 teams against their schedule. In fact, their margin was the number 1 margin in the country coming into last week's game against Ohio State. I'm not going to be surprised if the committee has Indiana still above all of those teams. They're all one loss. And if you compare resumes, actual resumes, and you look at it, and you can watch the film, you can do all of these things, Indiana has a better resume than Miami, SMU, or Notre Dame. To me, it is not a fact or a question of, is Indiana a bubble team? They are firmly in. I think Tennessee is firmly in. The bubble is going to come down to the ACC championship game loser and then potentially like a Clemson, South Carolina winner. That's what we're going to debate at the end of this season. But we're not going to debate Indiana because the data is putting them firmly in. They've got a better loss than those other. They've got a better schedule than those other teams. And they've also been more dominant in the 10 wins that they have had.
All right, you can see the big noon kick. Ohio State and Michigan, one of the great rivalries in college football. Saturday, 11 a.m. on Fox. Klatt will be with Gus and the All-American girl. The world-famous Ohio State Buckeyes, as Gus reminds us, their nickname.
Can we try it on the way out, guys?
What are we trying?
Dunaway. Try it. Just say, like, it's hard to win on the road, and then just stop.
It's really hard to win on the road, especially with Big Ten weather. Exclamation point.
Like, now we're in. I would have a period would have sufficed too. That would have been incredible.
It's hard for BYU to win on the road. They had all those Arizona State fans on the field. I mean, it's difficult.
I don't do a period.
It's hard for Colorado to win on the road. It's hard for A&M to win on the road. It's hard for Indiana to win on the road. It's hard for Penn State to win on the road. It's like we can just put period at the end of that sentence. We really can.
My marriage counselor would tell you I don't put a period at the end of apologies with my wife either.
That's right.
It's always like, baby, I'm sorry, but I was on the golf course for 4 hours and I was really tired when I got home.
Oh, but babe, I bogeyed 17 and lost the match.
I missed a 4-footer that cost me all my dots.
All my dots. Kiffin had a quadruple bogey on 18.
Dunked in the water on 18.
Hey, and James Franklin almost did
He's
too.
Sitting in the fairway. He's like on the 18th hole, a par 5 finishing hole. It's like all he needs is a par to win the tournament, and he just Van de Velde. And I mean,
give me the hybrid.
Especially when you say all week long, I don't even think we want to play in the SEC championship game. I bet you do now. I bet you do now.
News, yep.
Hey, Klatt, if Penn State doesn't get those 4th down conversions, especially the punt, they lose that game against Minnesota. I mean, who's getting more hell today, James Franklin or Lane Kiffin?
James.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's just flying under the radar because of all the other great games. But my goodness, The fake punt.
I know.
was insane.
I'm
It
watching
was
in the
incredible.
quad. I've got the YouTube TV going in the plane, and I'm watching. And I literally put my hands on my head, and I was like, "What is going on?" And everybody's looking at me in the plane, and I mean, that was wild.
Plane is not crashing. It's just James Franklin, everybody.
Yeah,
The marshal marches you off in handcuffs. It was a fake punt on the
It
34.
was James Franklin. I was.
It was a direct snap, sir. I couldn't believe it.
Big new kick, Ohio State, Michigan. Thank you, Klatt. We'll see you Saturday. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Got it. See you guys.
Yeah,
Hey,
happy
have a
Thanksgiving.
great Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for this show. I really love coming on and talking with you guys. Your fans are awesome on social. So thank you. And appreciate it.
Yep.
We're thankful for you, too.
You know we
man.
love you, brother. Take care.
See ya.
Klatt with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. MyBookie.ag brings you Klatt code next round for that 300% casino bonus right there. You make your initial deposit, they give you 300% and a casino bonus. MyBookie.ag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. MyBookie.ag code next round.